One of our elders, Brother Dinc McDonald, has this lesson. It is an apologetics lesson. You'll notice there are various types of lessons. We had a book study. Now we're doing apologetics. We'll have panels later. We have different. This mix and match makes it really effective. Before we do a quick announcement, also let me just say this: the water, there was a leak, so the waters are outside in an ice chest. We do have bottled water, and then also don't forget the schedules that you can scan. And I did find out that the live stream is BCS Church of Christ Facebook. BCS Church of Christ Facebook is the live stream, and everything will be archived on Tollstar and probably the BCS Church of Christ website as well. Brother Dinc McDonald is not just one of our elders here. He's also a retired vet surgeon. He once corrected me when I called him a vet. He said, I didn't say vet, I said vet surgeon. I said, okay. And I say that to simply say this: he does have a very unique background in things that lean toward an expertise in apologetics, and he's a very humble man. But I'm going to tell you, he's very, very good at this particular topic and others as well. And I think you'll really enjoy what he's done. He's also been an adjunct instructor at Texas A&M before in years gone by, and just a lot of good things I could say about him. Best thing I would say about Brother Dinc McDonald, and I mean this, is I consider you a faithful man and a friend. I really mean that. Now, most of the time I talk bad about you, but I'm being honest right now. And so with that being said, we'll go ahead and kick off the lesson.
I usually like to start off with something humorous, but I don't have time for that, so we're going to get right into our lesson. So you might be sitting there thinking, this lesson's on the eye. I came here to learn about God. I came here to build my faith. What in the world are we doing studying the human eye? Well, I think as you'll see, we're going to use it as a tool to do those very things. During this 10 o'clock hour today and for the next 3 days, we are going to be looking at Christian evidences. We're going to be looking at apologetics, and I know many of you are probably very familiar with apologetics, probably have a stronger background in it than I do, but there certainly may be some in the audience who are not. And so since I'm leading off this hour for the week, I thought we would have a little bit of an introduction into exactly what apologetics is and why it's important for the Christian. So let's look at the word apologetics. It comes from the Greek apologia. If we break that word down, if we look at it, the prefix apo means away or off. And then logia, of course, is to speak or speech. And so literally the word means to speak away or to speak off. It would have been used often in an ancient Greek courtroom setting where charges would have been brought against a man, a defendant. He would be in court. Those charges would be presented before the court. And then that defendant would be allowed to get up and make an apologia, a defense. He would have the opportunity to speak off or speak away those charges. From what I could tell, the word apologia is used about 17 times in the New Testament, either in the noun or the verb form. In Acts 22, verse 1, Paul there in Jerusalem said, "Men, brethren, and fathers, hear ye my defense, my apologia." In Philippians 1, verse 7, Paul said, "I am set for the defense, the apologia of the gospel." So again, the idea is that it is a defense. And so when we think about the study of apologetics as Christians, we're actually commanded to be apologists. The verse we go to for that is, I'm nervous if you can't tell, 1 Peter 3:15. In 1 Peter 3:15, we are told that as Christians, we are to always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks us of the reason for the hope that we have. That's a commandment. The Holy Ghost, through the Apostle Peter, commanded us that as Christians, we're supposed to be prepared to give an answer when people ask us why we believe what we believe, why we hope for what we hope for. We are to be prepared and equipped beforehand to answer those questions. Now, those questions can come in two forms. Somebody can come up to you very genuinely and say, "Look, it seems like our world is falling apart. All this transgender stuff, homosexuality, Our government seems to be more corrupt every day. And yet, I can tell you don't like those things, but it doesn't seem to worry you. It doesn't seem to bother you. Why? Why is that? As a Christian, why does it not bother you? Well, we all know why it doesn't bother us really deep down. Philippians 4:7. We have a peace that passes understanding. Other people don't understand how we can have peace in the face of those kinds of things. We understand that, and we should be able to answer that person about why we don't worry about those kinds of things. On the other hand, a person might come up to you and challenge you, confront you. In the Church of Christ, y'all don't use mechanical instruments of music in your worship. Why? Why don't y'all do that? We should be able to answer that. Again, we're commanded to be apologists and to be prepared to give answers to those kinds of things. I've heard people say before, why do we need to study anything other than the Bible? And certainly we need to study the Bible. That needs to be the primary focus of our study. But they'll say, I don't think we need to study anything other than the inspired, inerrant Word of God. But certainly there are extra biblical proofs of God that we can use both to build our faith and potentially to convert other people. Think about approaching a Bible study with an atheist or an agnostic or even apathetic that just doesn't care. You can't begin with the Bible, because how can you convince them to study a book by and about someone that they don't think exists? They're not going to study the Bible with you. They don't even believe in God. But if you can, through extra biblical knowledge that you have, cause them to have doubt in their mind, then that may be an opportunity through the creation of that doubt to get them to consider the possibility that there is a God, and ultimately get them into the Bible to try to study with them and convert them. And so again, extra biblical knowledge can be very, very useful and very, very important to us, and can be an important part of our arsenal in trying to convert people. Let's look at a few verses relative to kind of what we're talking about. Romans 1, verses 18 through 20. It says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them. For God has showed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse." So that passage tells us that God is wrathful. His wrath has been kindled. Why? Because there are people who basically deny his existence. They deny his existence when they stand in a material world that screams for the existence of God. He's made it evident. He's shown it. Anyone who is honest and looks at the material world cannot deny that God exists. Look at Psalm 19, verses 1 through 3. Psalm 19, 1 through 3 says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard." It's exactly what that passage says. Nature, the material world, screams for the existence of God. You know, I don't say this to be irreverent, but when God created this world, it's almost as if he was showing off. And this is what I mean by that. Again, no irreverence intended. A year ago, we went down to the aquarium in Corpus, and I was standing there in front of that fish tank. There's every size, shape, color of fish that anyone could imagine in that tank. Well, if God had just created a largemouth bass, that would be impressive. But he didn't do that. When we look at the heavens at night, all the billions of stars, the vastness we can't even comprehend. Why? Why so big? Why not just this earth? Again, I think it was God showing us that he exists, making it undeniable that he exists for those who have an honest heart. If he had just created the sun, our star, that would be incredible. But he created billions of them. Again, those with an honest heart cannot deny that there's a God. Hebrews 11:1, a verse that we all know. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. The word substance there is hypostasis. Hupo, we would pronounce it hypo in English, is below, okay? And stasis is firmly fixed. And so it's the idea of a substructure or a foundation, if you will. So there's substance to our faith, and there's evidence, a thing, or that which by which a thing is proved or tested. We often read that verse to say that our faith has substance. It has evidence. It's not a blind faith, and that's absolutely true. Although recently John Hall pointed out that that's not what that verse really says. That verse says that our faith is substance. Our faith is evidence. The fact that we are all here, that we are all devoted to God, that we are all devoted our lives to trying to be pleasing to him, the fact that many of you have traveled a long distance to be here because of your love for God and his word, that is evidence and faith that God exists. So both are true. While, again, those many will argue that that creation is not seen, you cannot discount the fact that there is geological evidence, there's medical evidence that supports the existence of God. For instance, just quickly, there's geological evidence of a worldwide global flood. All over the world, there's evidence. Well, that is a testament to the veracity of God's word. That proves that God's word is true. There was a worldwide global flood. We can prove that geologically. And again, so studying those things can be faith building. And that's the purpose of this series of Christian evidences over the next couple of days, is to look at some of those things to help build our faith. So what about the human body specifically as an area of apologetics? Is there value in studying the human body relative to embryology, anatomy, physiology, those sorts of things, as a tool to strengthen our faith and our apologetic arsenal? I believe that there is. Turn to Psalm 139, verse 14. We'll read 14 through 16. Psalm 139, 14 through 16 says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. My substance was not hid from thee when I was made in secret, and curiously wrought in the lower parts of the earth. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect, and in the book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them. That phrase, curiously wrought, means to variegate, like a variegated leaf on a plant, to mix colors. It's the idea of like a needlework or a tapestry. Think about a weaver sitting in front of a loom and weaving this very detailed, beautiful tapestry, if you will. That's the idea of God and him creating us. So like David, we should acknowledge and know right well that we are incredibly made. God made us incredibly. And I have often found it astounding that anyone who is involved with medicine, the practice of medicine, the medical field, science, really any sort of science, could deny the existence of God. Because the more we learn, the more we realize how little we know about how things work, about how the human body works. And we know a lot, don't get me wrong, but there's still so much that we don't know. and we don't understand. So in apologetics, there are categories of arguments that we can use with people. For instance, the cosmological argument. If something exists, then there never could be a time when nothing existed, because something can't come from nothing. That's the cosmological argument. The moral argument. If there's an objective moral standard, if it is wrong to murder, objectively, morally wrong to murder, then there has to be a lawgiver, a moral lawgiver. So we use those arguments, again, with atheists, that sort of thing, to try to engage them in a study. What we're going to look at today is the teleologic argument. The teleologic argument says that where there is design, of necessity, there must be a designer. Okay? Hebrews 3:4 says, every house is built by some man, but he that built all things is God. Same concept. When we see a house, we understand somebody designed that house, somebody built that house. It didn't just appear. In the same way, when we look at creation, the material world, if we can see design in it, that demands a designer. It could not have happened by itself. And so we're going to look at the human body. Specifically this morning, we are going to look at the human eye and see, can we see design in the eye, in its purpose, in its function? Again, because if we see design in the eye, there has to be a designer. Of course, we understand there is a designer, and that's Jehovah. But again, as we talk to, study with people who maybe don't believe in God, if we can get them to admit that, yes, design demands a designer, and we can show them the human body exhibits design, then they have to admit, okay, there has to be a designer. A lot of times we think about apologetics as related to, say, evolution. That we use apologetics to combat evolution, and certainly we do. But I'll make this last point, and then we'll get on the eye. Apologetics covers everything that we believe. Okay? So we might be called to defend the historicity of Christ. We might be called to defend that the Bible is the Word of God. We might be called to defend pouring or sprinkling versus immersion. The essentiality of baptism, the one true church. All of that is apologetics. And so again, it's a very wide field. It's something that all of us should have an interest in, and at least a basic understanding of some of those things, so that we are able to defend what we believe, again, with the goal of teaching others. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of apologetics. We've talked about the teleologic argument, design demands a designer. But what is design? We need to have a definition for design. If we're looking for it, what is it? To me, a simple definition is an arrangement of multiple parts into an organized unit for the accomplishment of a specific purpose. So, my wristwatch. My wristwatch is an arrangement of multiple parts. Got the crystal, the face. This one doesn't have hands, but hands, a winding stem often. Inside there are gears, springs. It has a band to affix it to my wrist. The band has a buckle, a latch to hold it on my wrist. That's design. What's the purpose? What's its function? That arrangement of multiple parts into this organized unit, what's its purpose? To tell time, to track time, okay? Well, we understand when we look at my watch that there was a watchmaker. It was designed and it was built by someone. There was a watchmaker. So again, that's what we're looking for as we look at the eye this morning, to see if we can see that arrangement of multiple parts into an organized unit for the accomplishment of a specific purpose. That's what we're looking for. So, let's get into the eyeball. It's my opinion that the eye is among the most fascinating of the organs in the body. There's lots of different reasons for that, and there are lots of splendid organs in our body. But the eye, to me, and the feat of sight is remarkable. And to talk about the eye, first we need to go through the anatomy a little bit, the parts, so that we can understand how they work together. So as we just look at the eye in general, there's eyelids above and below, there's eyelashes, an eyebrow. What's the purpose of those things? Do they have purpose? Well, of course they do. So I mow a lot this time of year, and it's dusty. And when I finish, my eyebrows are full of dust. My eyelashes are full of dust. And yes, some gets in my eye, but my eyelashes and my eyebrows filter out a lot of that stuff into my eye. On the front of the eye is the cornea, okay? That's the clear part of our eye. I say that as if it's a simple thing, but think about this. It's a clear tissue. Think about that for a second. A clear tissue. It would be like if I went to a scientist and said, look, I need you to make some clear steel. Well, you can't. That's not possible. But with God, all things are possible. So what's the challenge of a clear tissue? Let me give you a hint. As kids, we would run around outside with flashlights. And if you put your hand over the end of the flashlight, what color was it? Red. Why? Blood, right? Well, that cornea's got to have blood or something. It's got to have some way. We understand tissue is alive. It has to have oxygen. It has to have nutrients because it's made up of cells. Well, if we had blood vessels going into our cornea, that wouldn't be very good vision, would it? And so we would say, well, it's not possible to have a clear tissue because you've got to get oxygen and nutrients to those cells in the cornea, and we can't have blood vessels, so it's not possible to have a clear tissue. That's an impossibility. Well, clearly it's not an impossibility, and we'll talk about how that is possible. So that's our first layer, is the cornea, okay? That's this kind of rounded part out here. Behind that is a fluid known as the aqueous humor. It's not going to be real important for our study, although it does play a role in focusing the image. But it does give our cornea its shape. It holds it out. If you were to drain that aqueous fluid out of someone's eye, their cornea would collapse. They would lose their vision. So it's very important. Behind that is the iris. The iris is the colored part of the eye. When we say someone has blue eyes or green eyes or brown eyes, what we're looking at is their iris, okay? In the middle of the iris, there's a black hole, and it's just an opening through the iris for light to pass through. Behind the iris, then, is the lens, okay, where the majority of the focusing happens in our eye. Behind the lens is the vitreous humor. It's another semi-liquid. It's more like a jello, if you will. And it keeps the back part of the eye in place, inflated, if you will, and also holds the retina in place. And the retina, of course, is where that image, that light that's coming through, is processed, okay? So that is basic anatomy of the eye. I do want to point out something else. Our eye is very protected in a lot of ways. We have bone. We have a bony orbit. If you've ever looked at a human skull, you'll see a big socket there that the eyeball sits in. So it's surrounded by bone about 2/3 of the way around. There's a fat pad all the way around to cushion it. You have the extraocular muscles that come and tie into the eye that give us the ability to move our eye around, up and down, back and forth. There's actually, doesn't show it here, but there's a retractor bulbi muscle on the back of the eye. Any of you who are deer hunters, and when you walk up and you're trying to tell if the deer is dead, you will take the barrel of your gun and touch their eyeball. The reason why is that retractor bulbi muscle pulls the eye back and the eyelids close. If someone comes up and tries to touch your eyeball, that retractor bulbi muscle will automatically pull the eye back and close your lid. You don't do that. That's involuntary. And so a deer can't help but blink if it's alive. And so that's one of the ways that we tell that they're dead. But the point is, there's a lot of extraocular design here as well that we don't necessarily think about when we think about the eye. So those are the basic parts of the eye. So let's talk a little bit more, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but again, we're looking for an arrangement of multiple parts into an organized unit for the accomplishment of a specific purpose. I'm just hitting the highlights, and I'm not sure I'm going to have time to hit all of those, but let me give you, for instance, the cornea, okay? This is a cross-section of the cornea. There's 5 different layers to the cornea. We're not going to go through all of them and what their purpose is, but they each have unique and specific purposes that are very, very important. But I did want to point out that the endothelium, the very inside portion of the cornea, is critically important because we have to have some fluid in that cornea. Living tissue has to be hydrated. And so we have to have some fluid in our cornea, but if we have too much fluid in our cornea, it would become foggy, cloudy. We wouldn't be able to see clearly. And so that endothelial lining there on the inside of the cornea regulates the water content in our cornea so that we don't get too much water in our cornea and not be able to see, or not have enough and have our cornea dry out and die. And so there are all kinds of little things that are going on. If we got down to the cellular level of how that happens, there are pumps that pump water in and out of the cornea to keep that hydration level perfectly regulated. Energy production in those cells. We could get down to the even subcellular levels, the organelles like mitochondria and Golgi bodies and things like that. Gets very, very complicated. Realize we're just skimming the surface, okay? It's much, much more complicated than what we're going to look at this morning. Another thing I wanted to point out, just because to me it's interesting and it shows design. So our lacrimal gland, our tear gland, is located above our upper eyelid. Kind of, if you look at my left eye, it would be at, is that 10 o'clock? Am I doing that backwards? So it's up kind of on the outer third of the eye, just above your upper eyelid. It produces tears that come down these little ducts. In the corner of your eye is the lacrimal puncta. It's a little tiny hole in the corner of your eye. If you know where to look, you can see it. That lacrimal duct then goes down and drains into your nose. You ever wondered why when people cry, their nose runs? That's why. They have excess tear production. They have so much, in fact, that runs out their face. But a lot of it goes down that lacrimal duct and gives them a runny nose. If you go outside and you stare at the sun, a lot of times you'll sneeze. Why? Because that stimulates tear production. That bright light stimulates tear production, increases flow through that lacrimal duct into your nose, and it'll make you sneeze. You can think of it like a shower head and a drain, okay? The idea is we want to get a tear film all the way across that eye. I mentioned a while ago that the eye does not have a blood supply. It receives its oxygen and nutrients from that tear film, okay? That's what keeps it alive. So the tear film is very, very important. But you can see design there in that the tears come in up here and they drain out down here so that they will coat that entire surface of the eye. Again, you see design there? So let's go back to our drawing again and talk about some of these things specifically. I've completely gone off the deep end on my notes. But, I did not talk about a while ago the sclera. So the sclera is the white part of our eye, okay? That goes all the way around the back of the eye, 360 degrees. The only part that is not covered by sclera is the cornea, the very front clear part. That sclera is tough, dense. It protects the internal components of the eye. Again, very important. I didn't talk about the optic nerve. The information that's taken in by the retina will travel up the optic nerve. We'll talk about that more in a second. Let me see if I can get back on track here. So let's talk a little bit about focusing and image production. Our concept of vision is that we look out. That's not really what happens. We are taking information in. Same product, but the way it works is that light comes into our eyes and it's processed. So the light enters the cornea. There's a little bit of focusing that goes on there because of the shape of the cornea. A little bit of focusing because of the aqueous humor. It comes through the pupil. Now, the pupil restricts and contracts based on how much light is coming in. If it's very, very bright, if you've watched people's pupils, somebody who's outside at night, it's very, very dark, their pupils are going to be huge. If you shine a flashlight in their eye real quick, you'll see that pupil constrict down. That's what the pupil does, okay, is it regulates how much light comes into our eyes to protect the retina so that we don't damage our retina because too much light is coming in. Now think about that for a second. That's completely automated. We don't think about it. We don't do it. It's a very complicated system. When the light hits the retina, through the parasympathetic nervous system, it goes to the brainstem. The brainstem processes that information, goes up and tells either the sphincter muscle in the iris to constrict, to make our pupil smaller, or the retractor muscles in the pupil, or in the iris rather, to contract, to make the pupil bigger, to let more light in. That's all automatic, and it happens almost instantaneously. So incredibly rapid. We never think about it. We have no control over it. It's all automated, completely automatic. The light then goes through the lens. The lens, as I said earlier, is the primary focusing mechanism for the image that we're receiving. If we're looking at something far away, the light does not have to be bent as much, and so you'll have a very flat lens. To get a flat lens, what happens is there are little tiny lenticular muscles here and here that pull on that lens to flatten it out, okay? So when we're looking at something far away, our lens is very flat. Those little tiny muscles pull that lens to flatten it out, again, to focus that image perfectly on our retina. If we're looking at something up close, that light's got to be bent a lot. Those little muscles, those little lenticular fibers relax. The lens gets very fat to bend that image or that light maximally, again, to perfectly focus it on our retina. Again, there's a whole cascade of events that have to occur for that to happen. It has to happen very quickly. But I can look at that back door and then look at my hand. My lens has to change shape completely to do those two things. It happens instantaneously, okay? Again, do you see design in that? The light then goes through this vitreous humor, again, a little bit more focusing, and then the image is received by the retina. A couple of things. When the image goes through the lens, it's turned upside down. So the image that our retina receives is upside down. Basically, if I didn't have a brain and I were looking at y'all, this whole room would be upside down. Our brain turns it right side up. And that's pretty incredible. Not only that, in our retina, there are different receptor cells, rods and cones. We have about 125 million rod cells in our retina. They allow us to see in low light, like at night, and also very rapid movements. And so you can think of those rod cells as like high speed, very high speed, black and white film. Then we have cone cells, which are what we're using right now, okay? They show color, they show great detail, they work in light. That's low speed color film. basically. Both are very important. That high speed, the rods, the high speed black and white, you know how sometimes you'll see something out of the corner of your eye, just real quick? You don't know what it was, but it makes you look. You react because, you know, I just saw something. It's a protective mechanism. You know, if somebody's trying to sneak up on you or whatever, it's the rods that will pick that up. Again, they're not good for color. That's why, have you ever wondered at night why everything looks gray or black or white? There's no color. Well, trees are still colored at night. But why don't they look green? It's because it's our rods that are able to pick up that information at night. And because, again, they're like black and white film, everything looks gray, okay? Again, in the day, our cones are functioning, we can see color. Even though we have 125 million rods, we only have 5 to 7 million cones. But the cones, there are 3 different types. There's red, green, and blue. By the way they interact together, we can see, it's estimated, about 50 to 75 million different shades of color by the way that those different cones act together. Pretty incredible. Let's talk about what happens then. So the image is captured by the retina. I'm not going to go into this. The retina is very complicated. The light passes through here. These are the rods and cones back here. They are stimulated. They send a signal through these bipolar cells up to the ganglion cells, and then these ganglions have dendrites that make up the optic nerve. So that's how that information, and it's actually an electrochemical reaction. It's very, very complicated. We're going to skip through that. We've basically talked about this, the focusing process. So behind the eye, so the optic nerve then comes in from each eye, and it crosses just behind the eyes, kind of at the base of our brain, at what's called the optic chiasm. What's really interesting about this is, and I'm going to ask you, don't focus on the eyeballs at the top yet, focus down here at the bottom. So if we look at this optic tract, we can see the red fibers here, and that information is coming from the outside of this eye. And then we see this blue line here, and that information is coming from the inside of this eye. So basically, the outside of this eye and the inside of this eye are processing this hemisphere of my vision. On this side, the outside of this eye, the inside of this eye are processing this hemisphere of vision. Why is that cool? Because it gives us depth perception. It gives us stereoscopic vision where we have depth perception. You know, you think about a camera, when we take a picture, that's a 2-dimensional image. We can see height, we can see width, but we can't appreciate depth. By having this partial crossing over at the optic chiasm, it gives us that depth perception, that stereoscopic vision, which is so incredible for us. I mean, having depth perception is very, very important, and that's how it occurs, okay? It crosses over, again, at this optic chiasm. But the image we get is not like this and like this. The brain processes all of that where we get one clear image. Our field of vision is about 220 degrees. 360 would be if we could see behind us everywhere, right? 180 degrees would be right out by the side. As I hold my arms out and I look, say, at those back doors, I can see stuff behind my arms. Now, not clearly, but the point is that it gives us a huge field of vision, which is important for self-preservation, that sort of thing. So again, very, very incredible. Again, the brain processes all of this information. It turns the image right side up. As I said, it's upside down after it comes through the lens. It turns it right side up. All of that happens instantaneously. Our vision is real time, okay? In other words, it happens so quickly it appears real time. We don't have any sense of delay in our vision. It's pretty incredible, okay? So I've got to wind up. On the right is a camera. If we look at the parts of a camera, very, very similar to the human eye in the parts of a camera. So there's a lens in the camera. There's an aperture that opens and closes to let more light or less light in. That's our iris, okay? And then you have film here on the back that captures the image. Would anybody say that the camera is not designed? That it just came into being on its own? No. And yet, our eye is infinitely more complex than the camera. You think about, I think about Canon cameras. I know we have more advanced ones now, but the old Canon cameras where you had to adjust the lens. You had to change the focal length to bring whatever you're looking at into focus. Again, our eye does that instantaneously and automatically. The camera has a protective case. We talked about the protective case that our eye sits in. We've got eyelids, we've got bone, we've got a fatty muscle or a fatty pad around it to cushion it. Similar. But if I drop my camera and break it, it cannot heal itself. But if I scratch my eye, it can heal itself. It can fix itself. Pretty incredible, right? A couple more things. So, similarities of the camera. The camera has a lens cap, whereas the eye has eyelids. The shutter in a camera can be compared to the iris of the human eye. It controls how much light is able to enter the lens. The lens in a camera is similar to the lens in the human eye, which are both used to focus light and create an image. With a camera, an image is recorded on a film. In the human eye, it's displayed on the retina. But what if we think about the superiority of the eye? The eye can heal and recover from damage, as I said. The camera stores the image once, and the retina is constantly passing information along. If the human eye were a camera, it would be 576 megapixels. As of now, the highest megapixel camera ever produced is only 50 megapixels. So you're talking about a factor of 10. And to me, maybe the most remarkable thing is our visual system comprehends what it sees. That camera has no idea what it's looking at, no idea what it's taking a picture of. I can look back there and say, oh, there's my friend Tom Moore. Oh, there's the back doors to the auditorium. Not only do I see, do I capture images, but I know what I'm looking at. So I'll wrap it up with this. We all know a camera's designed. Eastman probably is the one who designed our kind of modern camera, if you will. They had pinhole cameras back in way back there. But we understand that the camera's designed. Nobody will deny that. No atheist will deny that. And yet, people will deny that our human eye, which is so much more incredibly complicated and capable than the camera, is designed. They will deny that it's designed. They will deny that we have a creator. And again, we just looked at the eye. Our body, we have no appreciation for all of the stuff that's going on in our body right now. Not only that, the redundancy that God has blessed us with. We have two eyes. If we lose one, we're okay. Our liver, we have 70% more liver than we need. You can have 70% of your liver destroyed by cancer and you can still live fine. We have 70% more kidney function than we need. That's why people can donate kidneys to other people. They still have almost twice as much kidney function as they need. Not only are we wonderfully made, but God has designed us with redundancy to protect us against disease and injury and those sorts of things. Truly, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Thank you.
First Chronicles 29:11 through 13. First Chronicles 29:11 through 13. Thine, O Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the victory and the majesty. For all that is in the heaven and in the earth is thine. Thine is the kingdom, O Lord, and thou art exalted as head above all. Both riches and honor come of thee, and thou reignest over all, and in thine hand is power and might, and in thine hand it is to make great and to give strength unto all. Now therefore our God, we thank thee and praise thy glorious name. There's a reason he teaches apologetics at the Texas School of Preaching. I think that was fantastic. What a great lesson. We're dismissed for our break.